Welcome to Your Future Starts Now, the go-to podcast for extraordinary women who are ready to step into their next chapter with authentic confidence. I'm your host, Gia empowerment coach, motivational speaker, children's book author, and girl mom. Whether you're a corporate powerhouse or an entrepreneur, this show is designed for you. Your Future Starts Now is more than just a podcast. It's a movement towards rewriting the rules of success for high-achieving women. Are you ready to get unstuck and step into your next chapter? If so, you're exactly where you need to be. Your future starts now. Welcome to Your Future Starts Now. I'm your host, Gia. Thanks for joining us today. I am so excited to introduce you to Kristen Hartnagel. Kristen is a magnetic speaker and personal branding expert at the globally renowned Brand Builders Group, one of the fastest growing private companies in America. As a founding member of Brand Builders Group, Kristen has delivered over 4,000 hours of strategy work and helps to build personal brands for New York Times bestselling authors and highly sought after keynote speakers. She works with 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs, top coaches, and consultants, and is the content licensing relationship manager for the company. Understanding that even peak performers endure a crisis of confidence from time to time, Kristen founded her own coaching platform, Evolve Now, where she empowers high-achieving business owners to break through belief barriers for exponential growth. You sound very busy. Kristen, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Gia. I am so excited to spend some time with you. And man, that introduction was pretty powerful. Thank you for reading that the way it was.
I mean, you got quite a lot going on there. It's incredible. Tell us a little bit about your background and your journey and how you ended up where you are.
Well, I have been working with the co-founders of Brand Builders Group for over a decade, probably like 12 years. So just to know that where they come from is how do we best serve our people? That's really how Brand Builders Group even became a company. So it's been so cool to be in it from the ground floor. Just what can this company be and how can we serve people who are trying to carve out a way to gain exposure to grow their business? So it's been quite a ride.
That's so exciting. And it must be so much fun to work with such diverse entrepreneurs and different experts.
It sure has been. It's been a wild ride and so many success points all along the way. So, really exciting.
Amazing. So, Kristen, on a personal level, I know that you have experienced an extraordinary amount of loss and grief. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to share a little bit about that and how that's shaped you in terms of who you are today.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that question because so much of showing up is being authentic to your journey because it is what makes you you. So, I had a very close relationship with my sister and my mom and my dad. And in 2012, my sister was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And it was as if both our parents were like, oh, hell no, there's no way a child is going to go before us. So they both died. But the beautiful
Oh,
thing was that my sister stayed alive long enough so that we could be with our mom together as she made her transition. We were with our dad as he made his, and I was with her as she made hers. And there's just nothing more sacred than helping people get ready for whatever is next. And so it was really a beautiful thing. The grief and the loss um, doesn't compare to the joy of the experience of being with them as they were kind of readying themselves for not being on this planet anymore.
such a moving story. Incredible how that happened. I'm curious as to obviously I'm sure you encountered a lot of difficulty and challenges along the way. What did you find was the hardest part of that loss for you?
Well, I would say knowing that I would be here as the sole survivor of my nuclear family without the people who continually poured into me. I had a very rare upbringing. I could talk to my mom about anything. and I could talk to my dad about anything. And I talked to my sister every day. So
Wow.
to figure out what does life look like without those people who were my biggest cheerleaders and those three people who guided my decision making. But luckily, the way I was raised um, empowered me to be able to do that well. And I'll give you an example of that. My mom, at a very early age, gave me the gift of telling me, challenge what you're thinking, challenge what people are telling you. Just because somebody who you hold in high esteem is giving you advice, don't believe everything they say just because they're in your mind, an elevated space. Then she went on to say, don't believe everything your father and I say, because
Mm,
we're only coming to it from our limited view. And then don't believe everything you think, because just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And so just having this tendency to really challenge what I believe has helped me be so open-minded that I get to say yes to a lot of things and be open to being able to shift my perspective and my thinking in ways that serve me and serve everybody that I come into contact with.
that's incredible. I mean, it's the testament to, the background and the foundation of your family of origin, and having that solid foundation to build on and really give you strength throughout the course of your life. And I love that they challenged you in that way, to challenge your thinking. And I think so many of the women I work with, the high achieving women, we are, married, having children in our 40s, and are just now starting to challenge our ways of thinking and realizing that, wait, maybe everything we taught isn't the absolute truth. And that can be really, really hard, right? When
Oh,
you've
yeah.
lived your life a certain way. And so I think that's such a powerful way to raise children, and, not necessarily teaching them what to learn, but how to learn. And to your point,
Yeah.
being open minded and having that growth mindset is just such a powerful lifelong skill.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And to me, it's a spiritual journey, because
Mhm.
I believe there's like this evolution in our consciousness that is being depicted. It is playing out with this hybrid working situation, with people
Mhm.
in their lifetime going, wait a minute, I thought I would be happier. I've done all the things I thought I should do. I
Yeah.
checked all the boxes people told me I needed to check. And
Yeah.
here I am with this underlying ache of dissatisfaction or unfulfillment. It's just almost like a disillusionment. I thought, like, I know it looks good on paper, but my heart is hurting. And how do I do something about that? And so that's one of the reasons that people look to personal branding, is how
Yeah.
do I bring out that authenticity in a way that isn't just like sharing what I had for breakfast, but is helping people feel, oh, you're my person, you're who I want to work with.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, there's such power, to your point, in the authenticity. And there's something that people feel really drawn to, right? When you are able to show the vulnerability and share your experiences. And so, we talked a little bit about, the pain and the challenge of moving through your loss and the grief. And I'm curious, for you, what kept you going? What was sort of, the light at the end of the tunnel for you that kept you, going through those difficult times?
Mm. I would say it is a practice that I was able to grow up with, knowing that my mom and my sister and my dad all understood the idea of positive thinking. I mean, even back to the books like, Think and Grow Rich, and the idea that your thoughts become things,
Yeah.
that awareness helped me navigate emotions, because emotions are really thoughts. And so I wanted to be present with the emotions of grief as they came to knock on my door. And I wanted to invite them into tea, but I didn't want them to unpack their bags and move in. And so just the ability to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm going to honor what I'm feeling, but I also want to be the witness to those thoughts and those feelings and say, is this going to be 10 minutes? Is this going to be 10 hours? Is this going to be 10 days? Is this going to be a matter of months? Because this doesn't feel good and you have the choice. How long? It's the truth. There's nobody that can deny you have every right to feel the way you feel. It's just how long do you want to feel that way? And
Yeah.
that comes back to having a choice and really choosing your thoughts.
Yeah. That's such a powerful lesson to recognize that we have more power in the moment than we typically believe that we do, right? And taking that pause and stepping back and saying, I have a choice or I have the ability to reframe my thoughts, because our thoughts do drive our emotions and our emotions drive our behaviors and our actions, which ultimately drive our outcomes. So I think starting there is the most important thing we can do. And to your point, accepting what it is we're feeling, right? And I think so many of us ended up, learning to either suppress or dismiss some of the feelings we didn't like, right? That came up, and they don't go away. And so, to your point, the only way to get past the pain is through it.
Absolutely. I would say that there was a little bit of a bounce back from the
Mm.
truth that you create your reality and that you should monitor your thinking and you could choose good thoughts, choose better feeling thoughts. They jumped to the extreme, a lot of people, that, oh my gosh, I'm thinking something negative. I'm just going to stop that and I'm going to replace it with a positive thought. But just, um, shifting without moving through is not going to serve you. It's really another word for suppression.
Yeah,
And so we can honor it, but we do have to make a decision about it. So feel all the feels, but Jen, how long do I want to be there? And what are some tools that I can use to help me get to the other side of that?
definitely. Definitely. That makes so much sense. Kristen, one of the topics that you talk about in the work that you do is the alchemy of joy. And it's such an intriguing title. I would love to learn more about that and talk to me about how does joy change our body chemistry?
That is such a great question. So, there's a lot of data and research out there that stress literally has a negative impact on our body chemistry. We know that when we're in a state of stress, it releases the kinds of chemicals in our brain that actually cause the breakdown of our body. So, if we
Mhm.
do believe that that is true, it should not be too big of a chasm to cross, that the opposite is doing the opposite. So if I can practice moments of joy, imagine the endorphins that I am activating. Imagine the kinds of chemicals in my brain that are actually fostering a healthy relationship with all of
Mhm.
my organs and my heart and my head. I want to be in coherence between my heart and my head. And there are things that you can do that really impact that. So to me, the alchemy of joy is it's not this Pollyanna pie in the sky. Can I just pretend that I'm joyful? It's actually doing exercises to recall joy, to project joy, to spend time in imagination. Because anytime I am feeling something I don't want to feel, it is a signal to me that I could do something about that. We tend
Mhm.
to think that we are the thoughts that we think instead of realizing that most of our thoughts are patterns of thought from
Mhm.
conditioning and programming and the way we grew up. So imagine seeing everything that you feel as a signal that you could respond to instead of react to. And that ability to create the space to respond helps you to choose the way you'd like to see things instead of the way you're triggered to experience things.
Yeah. And I think that's where the neuroplasticity comes in, right? That our brains are wired based on our past experiences, based on our thoughts and our beliefs. But it's how do we break that cycle, right? How do we create a new track for our brain so we're not stuck in that same cycle of thinking when, oftentimes it's negative, sometimes it can be toxic, but we stay there because it's comfortable and we know it, right? And we don't know how to get unstuck. Any advice for people who are, stuck in some of those cycles? Any advice in terms of breaking those cycles?
Absolutely. So, I mean, just to share a little bit of an experience with a client, this person every February he got into a funk. It was just well, he just didn't understand, but he was like it just was hard to get himself into a good state of mind. And so I asked him what happened in a February. Just think back, and it hit him, oh, this is when my wife actually sat me down and said, I had an affair with your best friend 7 years ago. And it rocked their world, but they were still married. Like they were celebrating their 30th anniversary and they worked through it. So his brain just hadn't caught up to reality. What was
Mhm.
happening is something triggered, oh, it's February. And his brain started thinking the thoughts that he always thought, where was that traumatic experience? And so I
Yes.
helped him understand that it's like his brain was playing a movie, but he pulled up the chair to watch it. You could just say to your brain, I know what you're doing. You've been triggered. You're wanting to go down this well-worn path, but I know how the movie ends. We're still together. I refuse to watch that movie anymore. And that's
Mhm.
putting you as the boss of your brain and really
Yeah.
helping it to think things in a different way. It's not always easy. It really does take witnessing your thoughts. What is happening? What is this that's going on? And do I want to do something about it?
Yeah, it's such great advice. And going back to the stress part of it, I think for a long time, we, generally speaking, tried to ignore signs of physical stress, right? Or deny, oh, it's just a headache. Oh, I just have a stomach ache. Or, not recognizing that they are real physical manifestations of stress that our body is holding.
Mm.
And so recognizing that mind body connection is so strong, and recognizing that there is another way, right? And it may not be what we were taught growing up. It may be finding new methods and new ways, right, of being, but that can be so incredibly powerful. I'm curious, how does all of this fit into the work that you do in terms of personal branding?
Oh my gosh. Well, I would say that so many of our clients who are really excited about the way they're going to serve the people that is on their heart to serve, they go through the same kind of self doubt and imposter syndrome. As soon as they get clear on their message, they start to
Hmm.
second guess, is this really
Sure,
unique? Is everybody else doing the same thing? And
sure.
so my background of being able to help people through those mental gymnastics is to
Mhm.
empower them to believe in themselves so much. And one of the ways is to help them identify the fact that typically playing small is when we are thinking about ourselves instead of thinking about the people we're being called to serve. So if we can get out of our own way and we can think about the person who is on our heart to go serve, it's less about me than it is about the person that I'm serving. And so that can go a long way in instilling confidence so that you show up.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience that my self doubt around even starting this podcast, right? I think what helped me get through it is realizing that it's not about me. It is about the listeners. It is about this audience. It's about building a community that feels heard, right? And feels supported. And that was more important to me than anything. So I think that's an incredibly powerful message. You and I do share a passion for reinvention. We talk a lot about reinvention on this podcast. So I'm curious, for listeners who may be sort of feeling stuck or feeling like maybe there's more, or curious but not sure what to do, a lot of times, as the fear, to your point, gets in the way, the fear of judgment, um, you know, the fear of disappointing other people, whatever it might be. I'm curious what advice you have for people who may be interested in reinventing themselves, but aren't ready to take that next step. What advice would you give them?
Oh, I honestly feel like if you are getting that little subtle tap on your shoulder that you could be doing something different, start listening then, because you are being nudged into what you are here on this planet to do. And so often we're just like doing the thing that we thought we should be doing. It's almost like a gift from the universe. Hey, you were meant for this. And you're like, hey, sorry, I don't have time for that because I'm too busy on the hamster wheel doing all these things. So I'm
Yes.
suggesting notice the nudges and then ask, like, what does this look like? We don't have to have everything figured out. We just have to be open to be shown. If I notice the nudges, I can quiet my mind, whether you believe in meditation, just quiet time. What we need to do is stop the outward momentum, because as soon as we wake up, bam, energy in every single direction outbound. So if there was any guidance, any kind of hints from the other side, it's not like it's efforting to reach us, but we've kind of blocked it out because of this outbound energy. So just creating space for stillness, to notice the nudges, to really think about what would that look like, to ask the questions and trust that you will get the answers. What am I being called to do? Why is there this discontent? Why am I feeling unfulfilled? If you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling discontent or unfulfilled, it is for a reason. And I truly believe that every single person on this planet has a blueprint for their soul, and they're being called toward that, but they can live and die without ever really discovering what that is. And that is what leads to this little bit of a tug on your heart. If you've got that tug, it means it's time to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And from personal experience, I can attest to that. And I think as high achieving women, I talk about this a lot, but we learn to neglect our intuition. We sort of learn to suppress our inner voice, and the external volume becomes so much louder. And so, for me, it was, how do I tune into that? How do I tap into it? How do I reconnect with the inner voice that's telling me I need to take a different path? And for me, it was really realizing that my passion is really in helping other people to develop and to thrive and to go through those life transitions. And so the first step for me was getting my coaching certification. And if I hadn't listened to that voice, right, I may still be where I was 4 or 5 years ago. And so I think it is important to listen to that inner voice. And I think the other point you touched upon that's really powerful is the exploration. You don't have to have all the answers, but I think as high achieving women, and oftentimes we like control, not knowing and not having all the answers and not having a solid plan can be really, really scary. And so just being open to explore the options and recognize it's not going to be an overnight shift, right? But maybe it is small steps and things you can do to learn and explore and find the right resources and support along the way.
And if I could give a 3-step process that people could easily follow when that fear starts rearing its ugly head, it's like, you could stay comfortable. Certainly. No one's going to, tell you that you shouldn't stay comfortable, but you're the one who knows whether that's okay or not. Typically, when we choose the safe path, we are not honoring that part in us that is trying to come out. And so, but that is not going to go without fear. When you're open to exploring, when you're open to asking the question, what does this look like? What could this be? This little nudge on my shoulder, tug on my heart. I would say, when a fear pops into your head, first of all, understand that you are not your thoughts, that your thoughts are that well-worn pathway trying to keep you safe. So think of your thoughts as an innocent baby. It's just trying to do its job. But there's this 3-step process. The first is to detach with amusement. Witness the thought. And the amusement is so important. It's to just say, there, little brain. I know what you're trying to do. You're just trying to keep me safe. And so you're
Mhm.
not those thoughts. You're just recognizing that you have a thought that's trying to get you to go down this pathway. Step 2 then is to reduce to the ridiculous. If you are on this point in time and there's an infinite number of ways the future could unfold that are negative, and there's an infinite number of ways the future could unfold that are positive, you've
Yeah.
chosen one that's over here in the negative. And
Yeah.
so reducing to the ridiculous is to pull it all the way as far negative as it could go. What is the worst that could happen? What is this fear really trying to tell me?
Mhm.
And then give equal playing time to, well, what is the best that could possibly happen? And just in giving that time, you're kind of moving the needle towards a more positive outcome. Is it going to be the best? No. But is it ever the worst? No. So you're just doing your job to kind of spin that dial a little bit more towards the positive. And the third step is to invest wisely. Understand that your thoughts are like coins and you are depositing into something. What do you want more of? I think the top performers in the world, they don't spend time, as much time as as the general public tends to do, worrying. They understand, whether they could verbalize this or not, they understand that there is power in thinking positively, in thinking forward, in thinking about the possibilities that lie ahead instead of
Mhm.
worrying about the worst way things could go. So it's detach with amusement, reduce to the ridiculous, and invest wisely.
I love that. Such a great framework. Such great advice. Thanks for sharing that, Kristen. In the work that you do with various entrepreneurs, what would you say, what do you see in terms of the personal brands is really what differentiates the really successful one? So talk to us a little bit about, what makes them unique, what helps them break through the noise out there, and, what truly makes them successful.
I would say most people building their own business aren't doing the heavy mental lifting. It's like the soul searching questioning
Mhm.
of what problem do I solve? Like I solve a lot of problems, but how could I distill that into something that I could articulate? Because when I give words to the way it feels to have the problem, people say, "Oh my gosh, she understands what I'm going through." And if they think that I understand what they're going through, they're also going to jump to the conclusion that I know how to solve it.
Yeah.
And so when you give words to the way it feels to have the problem, they're going to assume you have the solution. And that helps them see you as their go to person to fix that. But one of the biggest things that I think is a game changer for people who are building their personal brand is the fact that we do really hard work of developing your intellectual property. You do what you do, you teach what you teach, but can we crunch the way you say it so that it is unique to you? So we're not telling you what to say, but we're pulling out of you what it is you are sharing. And then we put it through formulas to figure out, is there an original, pithy, catchy way that you can say that same thing so that you're memorable and repeatable and other people will go out into the world and say, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, did you hear Gia's thing? Kind of like that framework I just walked through. We want to help you develop your frameworks. We want to help you
Yeah.
develop your pillar points and the things that are going to change people's behaviors. And that's hard work, but it is so worth it.
Yeah. So distilling down your core messages, crystallizing what it is you bring to the world, and the personal branding piece is really like your identity. How will people see you? How will they recognize you? Right? What do you represent? What do you stand for? Can be so powerful. And I think it is what connects clients, right, to businesses. So such important pieces of information. The identity piece, I think, you also touched upon the messages. I think another piece of it for me is the storytelling. When I do my
Mm.
keynotes, the thing that resonates with the audience, that moves them to tears, are the stories,
Mm.
right? And it's the willingness to be vulnerable, to show up authentically, to share my personal experiences. And even if theirs aren't identical, there's usually something they can relate to. And the ones that have been so impactful and rewarding for me are the ones where people reach out and just say, thank you for your authenticity and your vulnerability. And it's not about the thank you, it's about knowing that it resonated with somebody, right? For
Well,
speaking your truth.
Yeah, that's what we're all trying to do, is change the lives of the people that we work with. And what
Yeah.
we know at Brand Builders Group is the fastest way to change somebody's life is to get them to think in a new way and then get them to do something differently as a result of knowing that thing. And there's a formula for it. It's tell a story, make a point, teach a framework, and inspire a behavior. And so many people are like, well, why is storytelling important? I could just tell them what
Mhm.
they need to know. Well, storytelling bypasses the thinking mind. When you're telling me what you think I need to know, I'm in assessment mode. I'm thinking, do I
Yeah.
agree with that? Is that true for me? But when you share a story, I am moved emotionally. And then you drop in the point of that story, and you just taught me something after you've moved me emotionally. So I'm going to remember
Absolutely.
it.
It's so powerful and it works for sure.
It does. It does.
Amazing. So, Kristen, just before we wrap up, I would love to know, how do you define success? What does success mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And how has that definition evolved for you over time?
I truly believe that success equates to self-love. If
Hmm.
I can love myself enough, then what other people think won't get in my way, won't slow me down. Loving myself enough helps me believe that what I have to share is meant for somebody. It's not meant for everybody because nobody can help everybody. But
Yeah.
to love myself enough to believe that there are people out there who need what only I can share. So, how can I get out of my own way to go serve those people? And that really starts with believing in myself, self-love.
Yeah. Yeah. And the acceptance piece, right? The self-worth, the self-love, and the
Yes.
acceptance. I love that. Love that. Kristen,
Mhm.
where can our listeners learn more about you and the work that you do?
Well, I would love to just hop on a Zoom call with anybody who is wanting to explore either, where I kind of come from in my background with coaching through Evolve Now, or really more importantly for your listeners would be if they're curious about building a personal brand. So we can hop on a call together if they want to go to freebrandcall.com/KH, which stands for Kristen Hartnagel. So that's freebrandcall.com/KH.
Awesome. And of course, you can visit my website at gialacqua.com. Reach out to me on Instagram at gialacqua. On the homepage of my website, you can download your complimentary copy of From Chaos to Clarity, a 30-day journal for self-discovery and healing. Kristen, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your stories. This is Gia signing off with gratitude for your time and energy. Our mic drops, but the movement continues. Until next time, your next chapter is waiting.
That concludes another empowering episode of Your Future Starts Now. Before we wrap up, I want to thank this incredible community of high-achieving women. Your energy, resilience, and commitment to growth are the driving force behind what we do. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate it, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower high-achieving women just like you. And of course, share Your Future Starts Now with the extraordinary women in your life who are also on a journey of healing and empowerment. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, let us know what topics you'd like to explore in future episodes. Stay connected on Instagram at gialacqua. I encourage you to carry the energy of this conversation into your day and keep on supporting the incredible women around you. Until next time, remember, your next chapter is waiting.